Welcome everyone to a brand new episode of the Level Story Podcast, a branch of Level Story Magazine, which is a digital magazine that seeks to critique and celebrate stories told in video games. My name is Danielle, and as always, I am joined by Sam.
That's
Hello,
me.
Sam. Yes. How are you doing?
Well, you know.
That's a loaded question.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yeah. Yeah, we're recording this right now during, well, I guess it's almost, I won't say it's almost over, but it's June and we're currently in a pandemic, which has been not so fun, unfortunately.
Yeah. I enjoyed being home from work, but, you know, I'd prefer it wasn't for this reason.
I was gonna say, like, not that I want to, like, not be at work and making money, but I also wish that, like, maybe we just took a month off. Like,
yeah, I don't want to not make money, but I would like to not be at work.
Right.
Honestly. Make money a different way.
That's a great way to put it. Because, yeah, like, I know people who are home and they're like, oh, yeah, I'm bored. I'm like, how are you bored?
Seriously, I didn't even put a dent in my backlog while I was in quarantine. Like,
right.
I could use so much more time.
I know. So it goes, I guess. But anyway, it's good to be back because it's been a while since we've recorded a podcast.
It has been, yeah.
I mean, we were just saying before the show started, like, I truly don't know. I'm going to have to look when the last time was that we posted an episode. I think it was January because the magazine came out in December. So that would be the logical conclusion, but it's just my brain is not functioning always that well in quarantine, so we'll get there eventually. But yeah.
You and me both on that one.
Yeah. Anyway, just a quick note, if you like Level Story and want to support Level Story, head on over to patreon.com/levelstory. And if you want to get in contact with us, head on over to levelstory.net/contact, where you can either write us something or you can leave a voicemail. So before we get into anything, we just want to make a quick statement, being that we're currently recording this on June 4th during a time when there have been a lot of protests against police brutality and after the death of George Floyd. We are not the appropriate people to necessarily talk about this topic, and so we just want to state that we support Black Lives Matter, and we will provide links in the show notes for any resources to support the Black Lives Matter movement, as well as heighten Black voices.
Yeah, we just wanted to make that completely clear as we go into this, because this is not the time for vague platitudes and such.
Exactly. And with that, and again, all show notes, in the show notes you can find links to anything we can find. We'll put in the show notes to help support and heighten Black voices. And
please do check that out. It's so important at this time, both to educate yourself and support the protesters and the various organizations that are working to support them. So do take a look at that if you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, another note, and if you're interested in any, I just mentioned the show notes, but if you're interested in anything we talk about in this episode, you can head on over to levelstory.net/podcast/Celeste-reflection. And that link will also be in the show notes, but if you want to go there directly, that is the link. Again, that's levelstory.net/podcast/Celeste-reflection. And with that, we have a bit of housekeeping to take care of, because it's been so long, once again, recording a podcast. This section is basically just going over stuff that's been going on with Level Story, such as new issues, upcoming events, anything under the sun. So, one thing I've been dabbling in, I don't know if I'm really up to this, but I did it, so I have to go through with it. I decided to start doing kind of like a Let's Play series, playing Celeste, where my motto is sit back and relax, but then I actually played Celeste and wasn't very relaxed.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of excellent things, but relaxing is not one of them.
No, I went into it with that mindset, but then, like, you can... I kind of cringed while I was editing, because you can slowly hear my resolve just crumbling. And I was so frustrated, like, and I had to cut some parts out because I was like, what the F? Like, what am I, like, because I was trying to finish it, and I just wanted to finish playing the game, and, like, I think I was just uncomfortable. My back was hurting when I was recording, and I was like, oh, God, man, my motto.
I get that. My play experience in that game. Well, okay, no, I guess we'll be talking about Celeste plenty. I'm getting ahead of myself.
But yeah, not the best game to start, but, you know, it's fine. It's fine. We'll play other games eventually, hopefully. I want to do Firewatch and then The Last of Us. We'll see if I can actually do it if I find the time. But that is something that I'm doing. Currently put on hold because Sony Vegas is not being my friend when saving things, so not quite sure what's up with that, but, you know, we'll get there. New episodes will be coming out where you'll get to see me just fall apart. It's fine. Another new bit of information is I got to talk about the game What Remains of Edith Finch on the Art for Artists podcast, which I kind of really like that game. Like, I still don't know how to feel about it, but that's going to have to have an issue at some point.
Yeah,
have you played that?
I haven't. So many people have said I have to, and I do have it. I forgot if it was free on one or another service that I have at one point, and so I really do need to get to it. It's just, you know, one of many, but yeah, I really like to play it. I've heard amazing things.
It's very good, so when you get the chance, but I know that feeling. I've had it for a while on Steam, and I just never played it until very recently, so it's definitely very good. Definitely check it out if you haven't played it yet. And check out the Art for Artists podcast where we talk about it. And if you have a computer like mine, then it might struggle a little when playing the game. It was fun times with that. One new bit of news about Level Story is magazines are now available for purchase, at least the newer issues, starting with the one we're talking about today, the Celeste issue, and any that come after that. We'll have more information about the other issues at a later date, but for now, any issues released in 2020 and after will be available for purchase. So if you're interested in that, you can head on over to levelstory.net and find it there. They're not being sold yet. I'm still trying to find a distributor for that, but you can put your name on the waiting list and you'll be emailed and notified when they are available. And finally, the Patreon page got a rework, which I'm very excited about. Actually, not finally. There is one more thing after this, but just kidding. But anyway, so basically I reworked it, so now it's more looking like a magazine Patreon page rather than I tend to look to YouTube a lot for these types of resources, and it occurred to me that I was like, maybe, I don't know, I should probably do something a little different because that's not my field of expertise. So I reworked it, and now there are just 3 tiers. There's supporter, digital subscriber, and subscriber. And the subscriber tier allows you to receive physical issues in the mail. So if you are interested in that, be sure to head on over to patreon.com/levelstory, where you can subscribe for physical issues. And speaking of issues, the final bit of news is released a mini magazine, which I don't know if we'll do a podcast about, but Level Story is doing mini issues now that I'll release in between major issues. And the first mini mag is about Florence, which is a mobile phone game. You've played Florence, correct?
I have, yeah.
Okay.
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
personally.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. Lots of neat little interactive tricks used to sort of drive some points home, and, you know.
Yeah.
Short, simple experience, but very much the kind that speaks to what I appreciate about video game storytelling, so.
Yeah, for sure. Not only that, but, like, if you haven't played it yet, definitely give it a shot, because there's really no excuse not to play it. It's so short. It's, like, half an hour tops. Yeah,
it's a very brief little just phone experience, and I think it's real, isn't it, like, $4 or something? Like,
it's something like that, I forget. But yeah, it's not expensive at all. It's definitely worth it to buy it and support the creators and have a nice little game phone experience. It's a very sweet little game. So definitely check that out. And check out the mini mag if you enjoyed it. And that's all the news for, or all the housekeeping, sorry for Level Story. So now is the time where we're going to get jiggy with it. I love saying that. So this is the segment of the show where we go over news and things going on with games and in the gaming industry. I'm going to let you go first on this one because I'm kind of second-guessing my choice.
Okay.
But you go ahead.
Okay, cool. Well, as I speak, Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition exists. I shouldn't have started that with as I speak. That didn't make any sense. But it came out, and I have been playing it, but have also been... This isn't really the time for me to be sharing my impressions of new video games I'm playing on the internet, with everything going on. I don't want to distract from everything that's happening, so I haven't gotten much of a chance to talk about it yet.
Yeah.
But I never actually played Xenoblade Chronicles, because it was one of the 3 Operation Rainfall games that were, all these interesting-looking JRPGs that Nintendo was like, yeah, we'll localize that into English, but only release it in Europe, not the US, for some reason. And, there was this whole big movement called Operation Rainfall to convince Nintendo, like, no, please give them to us. The Wii needs more good RPGs. And they finally did, but at the time, I knew I could only afford one of those 3, and one of them was Xenoblade Chronicles, but another was The Last Story, which was made by the studio Mistwalker, run by Hironobu Sakaguchi, the creator of Final Fantasy. And the studio had previously made Lost Odyssey, which is one of my just favorite JRPGs, and not enough people have played it. I love it so much. So I went for The Last Story. I got the special edition. It looks like a book. It's really cool. And the game was all right. It wasn't as good as I wanted it to be, but it has some cool stuff about it. But, I never actually got around to playing Xenoblade Chronicles after that. So I was excited for the definitive edition, and I'm enjoying it so far. It didn't make as strong an impression immediately as I kind of wanted it to, mostly because I hate auto attack combat. Like the combat has the characters just attacking automatically over time, and then the attacks sort of like build up a gauge that lets you use other attacks that you do actually need to use and use some strategy for and stuff. And I can only think of one game that has anything like that I've actually enjoyed playing, and that's Dragon Age Origins, but that's because it had, like... Final Fantasy 12, I guess, too, because those are sort of similar, but those both had a focus on programming. It's a broader, like, you go in, you tell all of your allies exactly how to act, and you design how they're going to approach battles, and I was 100% into that. This isn't that, and... I'm playing a little ways in, and I'm starting to get a feel for it and enjoy it more, but man, it just takes a lot to sell me on that type of combat. But it did take a story twist a little ways in that I absolutely did not expect. It went a good bit darker than I expected, a good bit quicker. So it's got me, at least, and I'm enjoying it. Soundtrack's fantastic, so, that's happening. Xenoblade Chronicles is cool.
I've never played any of the Xenoblade. Is it a series, I'm guessing, or is it just one game?
I mean, they have made, like, I think they made, like, a spin-off and a sequel since it came out, and then there are some other Xeno things games, like, there's a classic RPG on the PS1 called Xenogears. It's about, like, mechs, and apparently is really, like, philosophical and theological, and I haven't played it. That's another one that I am told to play. Apparently it kind of, I've been told that it kind of pulls an Evangelion, where it was like running out of budget, and so the last disc is like weirdly minimal in a lot of ways. So yeah, I think that it's related somehow, but I'm honestly not certain. I haven't looked into it.
Maybe that's something I'll need to try, because I've heard a lot of people talking about it, and even seen people like streaming it a lot, but I didn't watch anything with combat. I only saw a bit of like cutscene stuff. So I'll have to give it a shot. It's pretty cool so far. I'm into it. It's also funny because since the localization was originally for the UK, it is the most British JRPG dub I have ever heard in my life. Really?
Oh yeah, no, 100%. It's interesting to listen to, just because the voices and such just are so extremely British in a way that you don't usually hear so much in American localizations.
That just makes me want to play it even more now.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Oh wow, okay, cool. Is it just on this? It's on the Switch, right? It's on other consoles?
Yeah, I mean it came out originally on the Wii, and then they made a port on the 3DS as well, which I've heard is not necessarily the ideal way to experience it, but still good.
Yeah.
But yeah, the definitive edition is a Switch thing, because it is a Nintendo thing one way or another.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's true. Okay. Cool. Also, okay, I'll have to add that to my list then.
Yeah, it's interesting. Also long, so be aware. But
oh God, yeah. I'm like, look, long games. That apparently is my thing now. Like, I'm very into long games, so why not? I'll just add it to the list.
That's my struggle. I love a good long JRPG that'll get me invested for like 100 hours. I love it. I also don't have time for that crap anymore.
I know.
And I hate that.
I know. Oh, don't I know it? I literally like. I guess this will kind of smoothly transition into my topic, but I've been replaying Final Fantasy VII Remake quite a bit because I was trying to level up so I could play on hard mode. And I'm like, I think the level cap is level 50, so I'm like at level 48 right now. And I've just been replaying through it. I think I'm like 72 hours in, and I'm like, oh dear God, like I'm having so much fun, but also like my brain can't play video games this often so much. Like, I'm like, but all I want to do is play it. So, it's like, do I give in to my urge to play Final Fantasy, or do I read a book? Like, I don't know.
I mean, but, I get it. The remake is a lot of fun to play.
Yeah, it totally is. And I'm not dying nearly as much now that I'm a higher level. So that's always nice. But speaking of Final Fantasy remake, or 7 remake, excuse me, part 1, which I have a question for you. Why did they not put part 1 anywhere?
Yeah, that is a weird decision on their part. Yeah, I'm tempted to say it's because I don't want to get spoilery in here, but I'm tempted to say that it's because the future installations are just kind of going to go off the rails, but apparently Nomura has said that they are planning on continuing the story of Final Fantasy VII, which just kind of raises a lot of questions about a lot of decisions they made in the remake, honestly. So
yeah, and look, I know both you and I, we're going to eventually get into this on another day.
Oh, yeah.
But let's just say Nomura's a part of it. Like, it's funny because a friend of mine, he had texted me before I finished the game, and he's like, how are you enjoying it? And I told him, yeah, it's nice. And then I said, I've heard a lot of mixed things about the ending. And he's like, yeah, he's like, I'm interested to see what you think, because it's very Nomura-y, like, just speaking as a Kingdom Hearts. True. Yes. And so when I did end up finishing it, I texted him, and I was like, oh, I don't know how to feel. And he wrote back to me. He's like, it's funny, because he didn't write it, but his hands are all over it.
Oh, yeah.
So, interesting topic we'll get into. But what I am interested in, even though, the ending... for the most part during that game, I had a great time playing it and like just loved every bit of it until like chapter 17. Yeah. So one thing that I wanted to talk about is just how this remake is really changing how we can look at games being remade and how we can retell stories. 'Cause when I think of remakes, at least in a modern context, I think of the Disney remakes.
Oh, gosh.
Which are just so bad, and like just
sort of pointless, like superfluous.
Yeah, exactly. I think pointless is actually a good way to describe it, because there doesn't seem like a reason for them to exist other than to make money and play on people's nostalgia.
Yeah.
And the thing about this remake is that for the most part, it actually made a case for it to exist. Like, it's actually really good. And it reminded me a lot of the times when I was younger and I would be reading the Harry Potter books, oddly enough. Like, I say that because things like the side quests, for example, where you're helping a bunch of people in the slums, it can tend to feel a little video gamey, but at the same time, it felt like these little moments were developing characters the way I always enjoyed about the Harry Potter books, when they'd just take a break and be sitting in the common room or doing something that had nothing to do with the plot. It was just them building their characters and helping us learn more about the universe. And I found that this remake did that quite often and in a really smart way. And I think that's so cool because a lot of, speaking directly toward Disney remakes, but just kind of, I don't know, games in general, I find, maybe it's because I'm playing all the wrong games, but I find that sometimes they just tend to insert dialogue that really, it's just there for fan service and does nothing to actually tell a good story. And Final Fantasy VII just did stuff where the choices it made I thought were very smart in terms of dialogue, purposeful dialogue, and developing the characters and whatnot. And it just, I can't stop thinking about it. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I agree. And actually, something along these lines was going... As I was playing through the game, I had, like, a video sort of planned out in my head about it. And it was very much along these lines, sort of that, like, when we think about video game remakes, we tend to think of the same thing, but with HD graphics. And that's... There are a number of reasons for that, but that's not generally, like, outside of video games, that's not usually what remakes are. You're right to point out the Disney ones, but, like, for the most part, when you remake a movie, you get something like the True Grit remake, which, like, yeah, it's telling the same basic story, but it is not the same movie. It changes some things, it presents things differently, and, like, we've gotten, I think that we've sort of overdone as a culture, the hatred for remaking things, because, like, retelling stories is something that we've done over the entire course of human history, and it's not something that's worthless. And especially with video games like this, like, I think that people should generally try and stretch themselves and enjoy older experiences, but not everyone's into video games enough to put that effort in to do that. Just like a lot of people aren't into film and are going to get turned off by simple things like black and white movies. I personally, like, take issue with that, but I recognize that it's a thing, and I still want people to be able to experience these classic stories. So I think that there is great value in retelling the story of Final Fantasy VII, because I think it's a story with great value and that people deserve to experience it in a more modern context and in a way that they can connect with better. So I think that they just generally did a really, really good job doing that until the last hour or so.
Yeah.
It's kind of Mass Effect 3-ish in my mind. Extremely good game, but man, the ending just kind of didn't.
Yeah.
And, you know, and we'll see how it goes as the whole thing goes on. But yeah, that was sort of my disappointment in it, was that I agree with you that they did an incredible job sort of retelling the story in a way that was faithful enough to retain what made the story so special, but still expanded on it in ways that made it hit a little differently and connect a little better in some ways. I love Aerith and Tifa's friendship in this one.
Yes.
Like, it didn't feel like they had too much of a connection in the original, and the most notable thing about them was that they both like Cloud. Yeah, you know, that could have been better, and it is now. Like, their connection is so good and pure, and I love it.
It is, oh, God.
Yeah, it's so great. So, you know, I think they did a really good job with all of that. I just kind of wish that they'd kept that goal in mind instead of trying to just sort of make a play on the fact that Final Fantasy VII exists, I guess. I don't know. I don't think that... I don't want to get too far into it. We've been talking about this for long enough anyway, but basically, I agree with you, 100%.
Yeah, and I'll just say real quick to your point also that, like, I just, as you know, recently completed Final Fantasy VII for the first time, and I do think, I mean, as someone who does love games, I still struggle when it comes to older games that tend to lack these sort of quality of life mechanics in them. Like, when I was playing through Final Fantasy VII, as you know, like, I'm sorry, folks, I know I shouldn't have done this, but I cheesed. I used the cheats. I am going to go back and play it correctly. I won't say correctly, but I'll play it as it was meant to be played. And I will not cheat my way through it. But the reason I did that was because I didn't feel I had time to learn the mechanics and actually master them in a way where I wouldn't keep dying and have to do all these things over again where a save point was. It just became frustrating. And I think also just when you have pixelated characters who aren't really talking, you just see text, it just can be sometimes hard to connect. And it doesn't make the story any lesser. It's just... it can be a little more difficult. And I appreciated having the remake, but it also made me appreciate the original game more, which I think was awesome. Like, it actually makes me want to play it and master it now in a way that I didn't the first time around. So, and obviously I appreciated the story. I mean, it's the most iconic video game story ever that I just happened to not play for the longest time. But in all fairness, I didn't have a PlayStation 1, and I didn't know it was available on all these consoles to play. I don't know why I didn't know, but...
Yeah, I mean, I didn't play it until it had already been out, like, a decade or something, so, you know, that's...
Oh,
that
really?
Happens. Yeah, well, I mean, I didn't really have a lot of video games growing up, honestly. Like, my first system was a PS1, and the PS2 was already out by the time I got it, so...
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
And, you know, it took me well after that to actually try Final Fantasy VII, so...
I mean, look, you've played through Kingdom Hearts 1. Does that really make you want to play Final Fantasy VII? Like, my introduction to Cloud was seeing him in Kingdom Hearts 1, and I thought, why is his name Cloud? Like, so... it took me a while to be like, oh, he's an actual character in another game. Okay.
Yeah, I can't speak to that personally because I played multiple Final Fantasy games before I played Kingdom Hearts, but I do know a lot of people who became diehard Final Fantasy fans because they played Kingdom Hearts first, so I assume it works.
I guess so, yeah. But yeah, and hopefully at some point on this podcast, we briefly talked about it before recording, but hopefully we can talk about Final Fantasy VII Remake on here because it's really all I'm thinking about at the moment, and it's kind of a problem.
Understandable, yeah.
So we'll get there eventually, but yeah. But today we're talking about Celeste.
Yes we are.
Yes, so back in April. Wait, May. Oh my god, my months are all messed up. April. Yeah, in April. Wow. In April, the Celeste issue released, issue number 5 of the magazine. All about Celeste, a game that you and I both love. Would you consider it a favorite game?
Probably, honestly. Like, at this point when I've played so many games, it's not all that often that I come across a game that I'm like, yes, this is one of my new favorite games. Only so many games pierce that veil. Nier Automata did, for instance. But
really?
Oh yeah, I mean Nier almost got there itself. I loved the first one, and then Automata just man, love it. But then yeah, Celeste also did. It left a big impression on me, and I really loved it. So it's, if not in my top 10, it's probably in my 20. It's always so hard to actually like plot all these things out. I love so many games, but it's up there for sure.
Okay. Now, not to go too far off track, but at some point I'm gonna have to ask you about Nier. What is it, Automata?
Yeah.
Okay, because like they released, I guess, a Royal Edition or something, or whatever it is. I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out.
Yeah, I think they call it Yorha Edition, and that's an in-game thing that I wouldn't expect you to remember that word necessarily.
Okay, gotcha.
But yeah, it's basically just, you know, Game of the Year Edition. And
okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Good to know. Because I was very confused.
But yeah, we'll have to talk about it sometime if you want to play it, because it's good.
It's on my list. I don't think I own it, but I'll have to check. But yeah, I need to play that soon. But yeah, it's hard. I mean, I haven't played nearly as many games as you, but still at the same time, like, sometimes it feels like it's hard to let another game into your favorite circle.
Yeah, it feels like a sacred place, and you can't necessarily just let anyone in, you know.
Right, exactly. You gotta be selective.
Yeah, there are a lot of games that I just really, really, really like, but, you know, not gonna make it that high on my list necessarily.
Right. Right, yeah. But I have to agree with you. Celeste just captured me. Even before I played it, like, I watched other people play it, and I remember just my introduction to it was at a Games Done Quick event. They had a TaskBot running it, which, for those unfamiliar, TaskBot is, I forget what it stands for. It's like, I don't know if you're familiar with TaskBot or not. I think it's like...
Not really. GDQ isn't super my thing, honestly, so I'm not sure.
Okay, gotcha. I think it's like, it just means that technical assisted speedrun, I think it is. Basically, they pre-put all the inputs in so that it will be the fastest the game can go.
Huh.
I would highly recommend it. I'll have to find the link to show you, because it is amazing how fast the game can go and how much the developers put certain things in there purposefully for speedrunners.
Oh, yeah, I did hear about how they sort of intentionally aimed some elements of the game at that community.
Yeah, like, it's just... it just amazed me. Like, that was my introduction to it, and I was like, I'm not quite sure what's going on right now, but it looks cool. Like, and just, like, the reaction of everybody, like, in the video, they have a bunch of people on the couch watching this speedrun, and their reactions are what... Like, I literally almost teared up, like, while I was watching it. Never playing the game yet, watching this, and them getting so excited about it. I was like, I need to play this game. Like... So, actually, what console did you play it on, out of curiosity?
Switch originally, and then I got the physical edition from Limited Run because, again, I love the game and I wanted to. So I did replay it on PS4 with my partner because she hates these kinds of games and couldn't actually enjoy playing it, unfortunately, but I wanted her to experience it some way, so...
Right. Hey, you know, you gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah. So I've played it on Switch and PS4.
Okay. Ironically enough, I also got it from Limited Run. I got it for the Switch, though.
Yeah.
So
honestly, in hindsight, I should have. Like, it doesn't matter which platform I have it on for the sake of having it in my collection, and the Switch is more portable, so... You know,
yeah, well, that's... Yeah. I was gonna say, I just like the cover. I love, like, for some reason, I just love the combination of orange and pink. So, like, the cover art just made me so happy.
Yeah.
So yes, brings me a lot of joy just to take it out and look at it.
Yeah. That's the feeling I get from most Limited Run games I order, honestly. I love having them.
I think, what was the other game I ordered? The only other game I ordered from Limited Run was Ukulele, which, you know, it's Ukulele.
I've heard mixed things about the game in general, but being only a moderate Banjo-Kazooie fan, in that I've played the first game and thought it was fun enough, and that's about it. I didn't really check it out myself, but...
I was going to say, if you were a bigger Banjo-Kazooie fan, then it'd probably be worth it. I'd say if you were a bigger Banjo-Tooie fan, it'd be worth it, because they're very similar.
Haven't actually played Tooie. I'd kind of like to at some point, because I enjoyed Banjo-Kazooie well enough, but...
Tooie... It's funny enough because I grew up with Kazooie, but, like, I like Tooie so much more as a game, which I feel like in my head, like aesthetically I love it more, but, like, the logical part of me is always like, no, Kazooie is better. Banjo-Kazooie is better, so it's something I wrestle with quite often, but I won't get into that.
We don't always need to have the best ones be our favorites.
You know, that's
my favorite Crash Bandicoot game is Crash Bandicoot 2, and for a long time I acknowledged that Warped was actually better, even though 2 was my favorite, and then I replayed them and realized 2 was just the best one anyway, so...
There you go, yeah. And Celeste is actually, speaking of... Well, I've never played Crash Bandicoot. Is it a platforming game? Yes.
Nothing like Celeste, but it is a platformer, yes.
Okay, yeah, no... What... I mean, I guess I've never played this, but a lot of people I've heard compared this game to Super Meat Boy.
Yes, that's the most well-known and accurate comparison, at least. Yeah, the sort of fast-paced, lots of deaths, side-scrolling, lots of jumping and air control focus. Yeah. Okay,
gotcha.
I personally enjoyed Celeste significantly more than Super Meat Boy, but I respect its place in the history of the genre, at least.
Yeah. I was going to say, at some point I'll try it, but, like, I never had, like, a desire to play it. But at some point I do need to try it. Yeah. It seems like a pretty iconic game in terms of things. But, yeah.
It definitely is. It also, the thing being that Celeste has this narrative element that, Super Meat Boy very much doesn't. It's, oh, no, the evil guy captured the girlfriend. Go get...
Right.
Like... The story in that just exists so that you can play the game, whereas in Celeste it's like a big part of it, so
Oh, and Celeste, speaking of that, Celeste, I did write about this. Sorry, go ahead.
Just it's a lot of the reason why it's as high on my list as it is. I enjoyed playing it, and obviously the aesthetics, it's visually beautiful, and the soundtrack is just gorgeous. But even the soundtrack is like part of... It relates to what's happening in the story. I don't know if it would have stood out to me quite as much without the context around it. Like, the story of this game is just everything. I love it so much.
Mm-hmm. Me as well. It's just... I love how the story, I mean, everything, I should say, everything comes together so beautifully.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, and this is why I wrote about it. I know this is a discussion that a lot of people have, and seems like I never thought it was that much of a, like, people are on either end of the spectrum, but like ludonarrative dissonance.
Yeah. People got really mad at the term for a while. Honestly, I think mostly it's because it was used in arguments that they disagreed with, and it was before they had straight up started saying keep politics out of games. But I agree that the term has been sort of like used a little too much and a little too loosely, so that it's lost a lot of its meaning. But I feel like a lot of the hatred for it just kind of came from people not liking the concept of using it as a critical tool. But
right.
I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, definitely, like you said, it's definitely been overused, maybe misused to a certain extent. But when it comes to this game, like, I feel like it needs to be talked about, because my God, like, I've never played a game that's so beautifully. I mean, unless I don't know if you've ever played a game that quite mixes the story and the gameplay so well.
I would make the argument for The World Ends With You being on a similar level, but yeah, it doesn't come around very often. I've heard a lot of arguments for Dark Souls, actually, but I don't know. Really? I've only played the first two, but honestly, I don't super see it. It's got sort of a similar, like, you have to keep going and learn from failure, and your determination will get you through eventually if you just stick with it thing going on. But the story of the first one, at least, is significantly more cynical than that. Like, that, where that is something the gameplay of Dark Souls says, absolutely, but I don't think it's something the story says, really. If anything, the story of the first one seems to think that accomplishing your goals destroys you. I'm not really sure what the deal is with that, but anyway, that's just my very short take on Dark Souls that might get some people mad at me, but... Yeah, no, Celeste it's a special case. I definitely think that it's among the better games that I've seen manage this ever.
Well, now you're making me, once again, I just need to play The World Ends With You. And I'm going to do it soon. I promise. Look, like, it's funny, like, when you released your series of videos on that, I was like, now's the time I'm going to play it. And how long has it been? Like, I mean...
That happens to me sometimes, too. One of my favorite fellow gaming YouTubers did a video a while ago about One Shot and Undertale, and specifically as they... in regards to parasocial relationships and how they relate to those. And I'm like, cool, I'll play One Shot. And I started One Shot, and I haven't finished it yet.
Oh.
So yeah, that happens.
Yeah, it does. Happens way too often, but what can you do? I mean... Yeah.
That video was by Red Angel, by the way. I feel bad, like, mentioning it, but not actually saying, like, yeah, she's great, check her out. But yeah.
No wonder, because I was going to say, I'm pretty sure I heard of that video. That's why.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, definitely shout outs to Red Angel. She was on our last episode.
Yeah.
Definitely check out her videos. But yeah, Celeste is one of those games, too, where, like, it's super hard, but it's rewarding in how difficult it is when you are able to master it. Mm-hmm. And I love how it literally has a note, I forget before what chapter, but it says, be proud of all of your deaths. They're like a symbol of that you're learning. Yeah. Or something along those lines. Mm-hmm. And that just really kind of hit home for me, because in the beginning I died so often for very... I hesitate to say dumb, but kind of dumb mistakes, because I forgot that you could cling to certain walls. Yeah. And so for a good portion of like the first chapter, I went through it without clinging to any walls, which I guess is a feat in its own right.
Yeah, it's kind of impressive, actually.
But at some point, I had you kind of have to at some point, and then I was like, oh, I can do that. Okay. But I did feel like a little, I don't know, like there is the kind of, I hate to say it, but there is a sort of shame. Like, you just want to be able to master the game and get good, as they say.
Yeah.
And I feel like Celeste just is like, yeah, don't worry about that. Like, you're fine.
The thing about that lives counter, too, is that that's sort of originally what it was meant for. Back when, like, Super Meat Boy did that, it was less like, cool, you've died a bunch and that means you're learning. It was more like, haha, this game's kicking your ass, huh? Like, it was meant to be sort of a tongue-in-cheek, look how hard this game is, it only counts how many times you fail kind of statement. And so, you know, for Celeste to turn that around is, I think, extremely fitting, really.
Yeah. For sure, actually, and that's a great way to put it. It really recontextualizes what it means to quote-unquote fail in a game, but move on from that and not be overcome by it, which I know can happen. Like, we have this, at least I know a lot of people who don't play games have this idea of a video game player getting very upset and throwing their controller at a TV. And this game is like, it just has a very... down to earth, I don't know, approach to it that
it makes a weird reaction for me, at least. I guess I can't speak to like your or anyone else's experience with it, but for me, usually, especially as I did actually like progress through it and started getting a better feel for the mechanics and stuff, and especially I'm still working on trying to do those dang I got all the B-sides done and I'm trying to do the stuff in the heart of the mountain now, and it's ridiculous, and it's gotten to a point for me where whenever I fail, it's less rage and more just like, well, that sucks. Okay, trying again. Like, it's mostly just me shaking my head at my own stupidity for whatever random dumb thing I did that, you know, messed myself up that time, and then moving on because, you know, there are no real consequences for it. It's just like, hey, didn't work out that time. Go again. And, you know, for me, that eventually sort of works into an almost zen... I won't necessarily say zen because it's definitely not calming. It's extremely intense, but... the failure stops being a frustration for me eventually and starts just being something stupid that I did that I won't do next time. Right. Or maybe I will, but I won't do it after that, you know. Right. I just keep on going.
Yeah, and like think about that in a context too, something like one of the other hard games I've been playing that I kind of have given up on, I don't know how I feel about it, but is Cuphead.
Oh.
And I don't want to... Have you not played it at all yet?
I haven't, no.
Okay.
It has online co-op, right? We should try it sometime. Maybe we could finish it that way.
We should. Oh my god, that would make it so much easier. Because, well, actually, easier, but also harder. Because I did do co-op with somebody. I bought my friend the game for his Xbox, and we were playing co-op, and, like, I kept getting confused with who I was on the screen. And he was too. So apparently that's, like, I don't know if that's a thing. I'll have to ask I have another friend I know who's played it co-op, so I'll have to ask him his experience with it. But I would totally be up for that because it's so much fun playing with someone else in that kind of context because then you have a support system. Like, yeah. Because I was playing it, like I was doing pretty good, and at first I was mastering it well, but after a while I've just died so many times that I can't even find it enjoyable, so I just decided to take a break. Where Celeste, like, I never had that feeling, like, and I think partially that also has to do in getting into your piece about assist mode.
Yeah.
Because I did use assist mode starting in chapter 2 with Badeline just chasing me. I just could not get to, like, this last part with her.
Which features did you use?
I used, what was it? I think it was just the one where it just makes you invincible. Like, we're basically meaning, like, yeah. I forget what it's called in the game, but yeah, like the spikes, or I presume her also, like, wouldn't kill you, right? Good. I don't think so. Now that I'm wondering. Because I think my issue was, like, it's just a really long page that you're on. It's, like, the very last one where she stops chasing you in chapter 2. And I just couldn't get past her.
Yeah.
But that's what's nice about assist mode is that now I can. Like, and your piece was, considering, look, you wrote that piece pretty quickly, and that was a really good piece. Like,
thanks. I'm the guy who, you know, wrote A papers the night before they were due. And,
same.
You know, I don't feel like I have that same ability now that I used to, but I'm glad it worked out in this case.
Well, I'm glad it did too, because, like, I wanted to write something about it, but I was like, I don't know how to put into words how I feel about it, And then you're like, oh, here you go. And I'm like,
it's a tough thing to, I mean, like, I get it, because it's a tough thing to talk about. I want to, because, like, as I said in the article, I 100% believe in trying to experience a work, just generally, be it a game, a movie, whatever, as it was created, which is why I don't, you know, I am kind of opposed to, I'm extremely opposed to spoilers. I'm opposed to just kind of, like, watching a Let's Play when you could play the game instead, stuff like that. But I also recognize that there are legitimate and compelling reasons why playing the game as intended isn't always optional. And in the case like this, like, I was a lot of the way through writing that piece when I looked up, when I found out that they had actually changed the message in an update later, and read that bit from the person who'd sort of convinced them to, about how as it's intended isn't really the point. The matter, like, accessibility isn't about altering the way that it was meant to be played so that other people can still experience it in some form. It's about altering it so that it is still playable as intended to people who can't play it the way it was designed. And I had to sort of rewrite some stuff around that, but, like, it's kind of, it's hard to talk about, because there's sort of a value there that I don't really want to, that, you know, that I do think is important, but also need to make sure that I'm not stating it in such a way that enables gatekeeping and ableism, because I've run into that before, honestly. Like, some of my older videos and stuff, that comes up sometimes, and once I'd realized it was there, I tried to be better about that. So, you know, it was, all that to say, it is kind of a hard topic to discuss, but I think a worthwhile one, and one that adds a lot just as a topic and as a discussion to the gaming community, because I think accessibility is important.
Yeah, for sure. And especially, like, the fact that it does work so well with the story in general. Yeah. That they managed to do that. And I forget where I learned about it, but I did know that they had changed the wording. And what struck me was how, I don't know, there seems to be this, like, reactionary thing to when people critique games, but they were very open to this change, and they made it and moved forward. And that was
very impressive. Like, it can be hard to take criticism like that, you know, but they just did.
They did a good job. And have you played any other games by the people who made it? Like, I don't even think I'm aware of what other games they've made. I was gonna say, like, I looked at I don't know his last name, but I believe the developer who made Celeste is Matt Makes Games, which I don't think exists now, or they renamed their company. But Matt he created a bunch of games I'd not heard. He made Towerfall Ascension? You're seeing that?
I played that. That's a super fun little co-op thing. I didn't realize that. Yeah, it's just, I mean, like, it makes sense in hindsight. As soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, yeah, of course, okay. But I hadn't realized that. Oh, yeah, there you go. But, yeah, no, it's much smaller in scale than Celeste, but it's a fun little thing to do. Okay. So, yeah. Oh, man. I'm looking now, and
you can see all the influences of Celeste within his older works, which I think is cool, too.
Yeah, like, for sure.
I'll put a link to this in the show notes, but it's really cool to look at. Matt Makes Games. Matt Thorson, that's his name.
Yeah. Do I follow him on Twitter? Because I should if I don't. I'm going to do that. There we go.
I need to do that, too. Yeah, it's cool to just a note to see these influences that ended up going into Celeste, which I didn't pick up on the first time looking at his website, but now that I'm looking, I think that's actually really cool.
Kind of makes me want to go back and play a little bit of Towerfall again.
You should. I've never played it.
Yeah, it's one
fun. Day. Yeah. But yeah, like, just I forget where my thought was just gonna go, so never mind. Oh. Moving on. I'll come back to it eventually. But one thing I wanted to comment on, and I wish I could have written about this at the time, but I didn't think of it at the time until later when I was actually editing the Let's Play. there's this scene, I think it's after chapter 5, between Theo and Madeline. I don't know what I'm supposed to say for that.
They're both legitimate pronunciations. Who knows?
There you go, yeah. And they just, basically all you do is just have a conversation with Theo. And there's this one part that I wanted to talk about, because if I had actually, like, not that I didn't watch it before, like, writing about the game, but for some reason I didn't pick up on it until later. When she says, I remember feeling normal, but now it feels just out of reach, no matter what I try. Then again, I was probably always messed up. It just took something hurtful to bring it out. And, like, I don't know why I didn't pick up on this the first time, like, hearing her say that, but re-watching, like, myself play through the game, I was like, that is so true of, like, just depression and anxiety that like, and that this game really gets at. Like, I remember, like, not to get too deep into it, but, like, I know you and I have both talked about our evangelical upbringings, and not that I was raised Catholic, but that's a whole other thing.
Similar trauma and deprogramming, at least.
Yeah, exactly. When I started getting into the evangelical sort of crowd was because when I was 13, like, I remember I went to this concert. I don't know if you've heard of the pop group called Jump 5. I was obsessed with them. In fact, I'm wearing the shirt right now. It's a pajama shirt I wear now.
Oh no.
From a concert I went to, which, yeah, that's a thing. And they made, like, a speech between, like, their set where basically they talked about, like, having Jesus come into your heart. And I remember, like, thinking, like, that after I asked Jesus into my heart, that I felt better about myself and I felt really good. And when that feeling went away, that I didn't understand why. And I feel like her saying that, like, when Madeline says, I remember feeling normal, but now it feels just out of reach no matter what I try. And, like, I thought to myself, like, that is how I felt when I was 13. And, like, I didn't know what to turn to. So, like, I went more to, like, evangelical Christianity, like, after that. But I think that having that in a game and actually talking about that in a real way like that, just that really resonated with me, to be honest. In a way, like, I know games can reach, like, very deeper themes, but I don't know, Celeste seemed to do it in a way that was just so unique, especially when talking about that kind of with mental illness and mental health. And I wish I could have written about it in the issue. So maybe I'll write, like, a blog or something about it. But, like, just rewatching that, I was like, wow, that hits home, man. I love it. Like, yeah. I don't know if, like, that's something that resonated with you or anything really with the themes of anxiety or...
I mean, to an extent, but as someone who's been... I guess I can't necessarily say I'm, like, neurotypical, because I recently realized I had ADHD and was going to a therapist to work stuff like that out, and since the pandemic I've been dealing with more anxiety than usual, so that's been fun. But as someone who hasn't had a whole lot of struggles with mental illness, it wasn't necessarily personal for me, but that doesn't mean it didn't resonate. Celeste, I can only speak to one half of this equation, but I get the impression that Celeste is one of those extremely rare games that manages to speak profoundly to both people who don't know what it's like and through the game can learn what it's like, and to people who have experience with it and through the game can perhaps gain more insight into how it works and their own journey with it. Like I said, I can only speak to the first half of that, but so many stories in general only go to one side of that or the other, you know, like, so I think that's a lot of why, like, so many movies about racism are about white people, like, because they're not necessarily aimed at capturing that experience for people who've experienced it. They're aimed at communicating that experience to people who haven't. And, you know, I've seen games about depression that do both as well, and sorry, that tend to do one or the other, but gotcha. It's not too. It always seems like when a game is praised by people who are on one side of that equation, it's not liked as much by people on the other side of it. But Celeste really spoke to me even as someone who hasn't experienced a lot of this stuff, and I've seen a lot of people who relate to it on more of a personal level who also just really connected to it in a special way, and I think that that's a pretty incredible achievement, because I don't usually see a game do both of those.
That's a really good point, actually. I never thought about it that way. But yeah, you're absolutely right, because I'm trying to think now. Like, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. So I'll have to think about that more. But yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah, when it came out, at least, I think Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice was fairly similar. I don't know if there's been more of a critical eye on that from people with more experience with that mental illness, but at the time, at least, it was praised for that. Different type of mental illness, very much so, but, still.
Oh, okay. I mean, I know, too, like, I forget what it was that I had read in preparation for the issue, but, like, I always, like, a lot of the discourse when talking about Celeste, I find, is talking about the mental health in this game surrounding, like, usually anxiety. But I read something, or no, it was a video. Now, I do remember what it was now. I forget who the YouTuber was, but I'll put a link in the show notes. And he's basically talking about how he more saw it as a stand-in for any sort of, not just, like, anxiety, but any sort of mental health that somebody is going through. Or any, not even just mental health, just things that you're struggling with and that you feel you're just kind of stuck in a rut about. And that really, like, made me think it's not meant to be, like, necessarily a universal story, but in a way it really is. Like, it's not necessarily pinpointing what Madeline's going through, but at the same time it doesn't need to, and you can sort of feel yourself reflected on that character. And that is sort of what makes it so beautiful, that you can use this as a way to cope through something that you're going through, which I thought was a really beautiful take.
I think that's the reason that because you can rename Madeline. Like,
true, yeah.
And I never used to do this, but recently in games where there is no canonical name, I've been changing it to, like, actually my name. I never do that in games where they're, like, I'm never going to rename Link Sam or anything like that. That's stupid. I hate it. But, I didn't in this case either, because, it felt like it'd be weird to name Madeline Samuel, but also, like, it came up with her name Madeline, so I'm like, yeah, cool. But I feel like it's one of those games where if you changed it to your own name, it would feel like the game is speaking to you more directly, and that could be pretty powerful, and it's general enough with exactly what she's going through that, yeah, I have seen people talk about a variety of things that it represents to them, and I think that's cool. I'm not one to throw authorial intent completely out into the garbage, but I do think that there is value to be found in people interpreting things through different lenses. People take that too seriously sometimes. Like, if someone's all like, oh, this game is about... Well, like, when the DLC came out and there was a little, like, trans flag in the background of a thing at the end, and a bunch of people started being like, oh, Madeline's trans, and going off into this. And a bunch of people got, like, really mad about it. And I'm like, look, I don't... Like, you don't have to think that there is any one thing or another, and it shouldn't be a problem regardless. Trans rights, but you don't have to think that the character is any one thing or another, but it's okay for people to approach the game as though that is the case and see what they can get out of it. Like, that's fine. Not every critique of something needs to be taken as though it's a statement of fact about it, because none of it is. And
one thing I want to talk about, because I haven't played through it yet, but have you played through Chapter 9? Or are you still on just Chapter 8?
I haven't. I'm honestly not entirely sure how.
I think,
because I understand, like I said, I did the B-sides and I'm in the heart of the mountain now, but that's the only progression that I knew to do looking at it.
Right. I'm pretty sure, well, the heart of the mountain, that's Chapter 8, right?
Oh, is it? I'm forgetting all the numbers right now, because that is like the optional stuff after the B-sides, but...
Yeah.
Oh, okay. In that case, yeah, if I have to do that to do Chapter 9, then God only knows when that's going to happen. The heart of the mountain is rough.
Look, I didn't do all the B-sides, but I guess I did enough. Well, actually, what did I do? I collected
You can get into, like, part of it, I think, with 4 B-sides.
Okay.
I think, I don't know, I did them all first just because I'm stubborn and wanted to, but...
Of course, yeah. No, I'm trying to think, what did I do? No, I actually didn't beat any B-sides, I don't think. I collected the hearts in the levels, so I kind of did chapter 8, but I got to a point
right.
where
the hearts are... Do you have to do the B-sides to... Or do you get the hearts from the... Oh, I'm forgetting how it works now.
I forget. It's been so long, and when I come back to Celeste, I want to really be able to continue mastering it, and right now I'm just not there.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure you have to beat chapter 8 and then chapter 9, because it's free DLC, so it should just come up.
Yeah.
But
well, okay. If I have to beat chapter 8, then I guess I'll just try and do that sometime.
I was going to say, I ended up just, because I knew I wasn't going to do it anytime soon, so I won't spoil anything since you haven't played it yet.
I appreciate that.
but it is good.
Yeah, I've heard very, very good things.
It looks freaking hard.
I'm sure. Yeah. I'm sure.
My god. Yeah, so one day we'll get to that. But
as a random side note, one thing I recommend, since you got it on the Switch, if you have any GameCube controllers lying around and any way to use them on that, or maybe one of the like GameCube designed Pro controllers or whatever, that controller has an octagonal like inset for the control stick.
Really?
Like it has 8 notches around it basically, so that you can very easily like put the control stick straight up or down or at a 45-degree angle in any like it. I played a lot of Celeste the first time with a GameCube controller plugged into my Switch because man, it feels just the most natural because there's no just like trying to move the stick in whatever direction you think you're trying to, because it basically clicks straight into where it's supposed to go when you move it where you want. It was extremely helpful to me. I enjoyed that experience a lot.
Okay, I'm gonna have to get an adapter now because that is something I struggle with Celeste.
Yeah, there are also third-party controller companies that are like making GameCube controllers designed like the GameCube controller, but they function like Switch Pro controllers. And
okay.
I'd kind of like to get one of those sometime actually because they're pretty cool. But and I just love the GameCube controller. But yeah, it worked out really well for me. I enjoyed it.
Okay, I'm definitely gonna have to give that a shot because that definitely changes things. Because oh my god, I can't tell you how often like I would think I was pressing it one way and then I would just not go the way I thought.
That's one of my most common mistakes. Yeah, I'm like, I'll go straight up, and then Celeste, not Celeste, that's not her name, and then Madeline shoots to the side, and I'm like, no.
Yeah, for clarification, I when I went into this game, I thought it was named, like, I thought the character was named Celeste, and so for a long time, I called her Celeste. It took me a while to come up realize Madeline, so.
It's sort of just an expectation. You go into a game named after, like, with a human name, and you're like, yes, the person I'll be playing, and...
Right.
No.
Yeah. It happens. But, yeah, anything else that you want to say about the game? Anything we didn't touch on?
One quick thing. I considered for a little while writing an article about the art style and getting my partner's help in that because she is an artist and knows the first thing about art, and I do not. She knows a lot more than the first thing about art, but I ultimately didn't really get to because I decided that my lack of expertise was just a little too much to overcome to actually write an insightful article about the game's visuals. But I not only love them because they're beautiful, as is the soundtrack, by the way. Buy the soundtrack. Yes. It's so good.
It is.
But it's just visually fantastic on like all fronts. But one of my favorite things that the game did is when you're talking to Dark Madeline, to the part of you or part of she is in, she has a little sprite of her face in the character box whenever she's talking, like all characters do. And then just before that first time when she like breaks out and starts chasing you, her character image like breaks that border, like someone in a comic strip being drawn outside of the lines or something, and like her hair sort of falls out of it, and it is this like weirdly distressing moment of thinking that where this character is and what they're doing, and then she just sort of like breaks out of your expectations like that. And she does it later too in the really big moment after that conversation with Theo, but it was just such a cool touch that I really, really, really love. just visually speaking. And I guess I just wanted to say that because I didn't get to write about it.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. Like that, the animation of the face portraits is so good.
Yeah.
Like, I love just the little details, like even of such things like how a character's facing, it will actually put them in the direction that they're facing.
Yeah.
To things like where Theo's in the mirror and you get like that little shine from the reflection.
Mm-hmm.
Just stuff like that is just so, just little details that like I guess
they have different text boxes, I think, too. Like,
I think you're right.
For the text boxes.
Yeah, you're right, because Theo, he has like the plaid, I think, in the background.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's so, and I love the little noises they make.
I am a sucker for a good video game gibberish talking sound, and yeah, Celeste did them extremely well. It has a number of, like, each character sounds unique, obviously, that's just par for the course at this point, but they also, like, depending on their tone, it'll sound different, and it's so good.
Yeah, I love, like, when Madeline, like, her little sound when she's, like, scared, it's just, like, this high-pitched little squeak that's like, I can't even do it. It's so precious.
I just want to hug her when she's scared.
It's so precious. I love it.
Part of that, yeah. It's very good.
Oh. And even though, like, I did put something in the issue about the music, even though, like, I really know nothing about music. So take it with a grain of salt, but, like, the soundtrack is so good.
So
like,
good.
It's funny because it's one of the soundtracks that when I first listened to it before playing the game, I was kind of like, all right, I mean, it's fine. I'll buy it, but I don't know. But then, like, I think part of it is just, like, playing the game and having that, like, it is so good. I love listening to it. And the B-sides are really good, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Trying to think, I forget what the track is called, but I think it's the Chapter 5 B-side. It's like this jazzy hip-hop kind of sound, and I love it.
Yeah, I hate it because I played that B-side and it was really hard, but it's a good track.
Yes. Oh, that B-side would be really hard because that level in general, and they're all hard, what am I saying?
Yeah, no, the B-sides are all kind of bonkers, but but yeah, no, the music's just all fantastic.
Yeah, it really is. So definitely check out that soundtrack if you haven't already. And of course, check out Celeste if you haven't. If you've been listening thus far and haven't played the game yet, dear God, play the game.
I mean, seriously, do it.
It's so good. Maybe it was last time I checked. I don't know how much it is on the Switch, but they seem to be discounting it a lot. So just keep checking in. Because they do these random discounts, I've noticed. So
yeah, makes sense. It's been out a while, and it's very beloved. Those games get discounted pretty well eventually.
Very true. Yeah, very true, very true. I'm just waiting for Octopath Traveler to get discounted. When's that going to happen?
Man, I want to play that.
I do too. I really want to play it. That and Fire Emblem 3 Houses, and I don't want to spend $50.
Understandable.
So, yeah.
Ooh, you should play Sayonara Wild Heart. Okay, we're going to get off topic, so let's move on. But I'll talk to you later about Sayonara Wild Hearts. It's extremely good.
I actually have heard about it, and it's on my list. So, yeah, we'll definitely talk about that. But, yeah, so I think that wraps up our discussion on Celeste. I think we said most of the things we wanted to cover.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just, I mean, overall, just a really good game. And we highly recommend it. And yeah, I hope you enjoy the issue. What the heck? Sorry, somebody I think is setting off fireworks near me or something.
Oh, I hate that.
Yeah, either that or there's some really weird loud noises, and it's like my computer's too loud for me to hear what exactly they are.
Right.
So
I have nervous dogs, so I'm always annoyed at people just randomly setting off fireworks. Like,
yeah,
come on.
I'm with you there. I mean, yeah, I have a cat who just gets so freaked out and hides, but she's not with me right now, so hopefully she's okay.
Yeah,
I don't think it was too loud to scare her, but I'm with you 100%. But anyway, so that will end our episode talking about Celeste and the brand new issue of the magazine. If you, again, want to check out any links or anything we talked about in this episode, you can check out the show notes. And we have links also to Sam and his social media, which usually looks like Games as Lit, or Games as Lit 101 is his Patreon. And then if you want to find Level Story on social media, you can usually find it either under Level Story or Level Story Mag. But again, all of those links will be in the show notes. And I believe that is it, unless there's anything else I think I've left out.
Play Celeste, everyone. It's real good.
Yeah, that's a good way to end it.
Yeah.
Play Celeste, please. It's so good. Yeah, I can't. It's funny. I cannot get enough of the game. Yeah,
it leaves an impact. It's very good.
It really does. So yeah, definitely check it out. But that will end today's episode. So thanks for listening, everyone.
Yeah.
And with that, we will talk to you all next time.
Until then.
Till then.
Bye.
Bye.